In communities everywhere, what started as a healthcare emergency quickly turned into a social and economic crisis. For the poorest individuals and families already struggling to get by, COVID-19 has hit them especially hard.
I'm just as susceptible as anybody, just like right now.
But that disruption has also given light to a path of help, hope, and healing.
When COVID hit, it was immediate, and we knew that we had to respond quickly. There was urgent. We had, real life examples of people not having, they lost their job, have no income, they can't pay their rent.
It's been real difficult. For one thing, I have asthma, and wearing a mask is not my favorite thing.
Well, poverty has been in our community forever, and I think that's what COVID-19 really exposed again for us, the total inequity of certain populations.
Long before the shutdown in March, Price Hill resident Cynthia embraced the power and resilience of her family and community. But now, the pandemic has completely upended their work, school, and social lives.
I would say probably the most major challenge has been finances.
It's a little early right now to say what exactly the impact of this current economic crisis and any further economic crisis may have on our actual poverty rate and our actually poverty number.
So many ways that me and for my family that they've been able to earn money and things like that have really slowed down, with both of my sons who do a lot of touring and things like that. That whole industry has really slowed down.
And I think it's a great place for the United Way to look systemically at what we do, what we support, who we partner with, what they support. If we are going to get very serious about making a difference and doing a do-over in our community, we have to look at the systems that help to create some of the issues that our families are impacted by.
But we've really had to work on different ways of, having income.
With the pandemic, what has happened is many of those kinds of services, those supports, have either stopped or been severely disrupted.
You're getting bombarded with statistics and doom and gloom and just all of this really, really horrific negative stuff and politics and all that.
What we can say is that so far we've seen lower wage workers have been disproportionately affected.
Poverty is widespread in our region, extending well into our suburban and rural counties. Today, of the more than 48,000 families in poverty, 70% live outside the city of Cincinnati.
One thing to remember is that when we're talking about Greater Cincinnati, we're talking about almost a 4,800 square mile region that exists through southeast Indiana, northern Kentucky, and southwest Ohio. It's a very large geographic space, large number of counties, about 2.2 million people call our region home.
Well, when COVID hit, I got laid off from work.
Up until March, Sean from Hamilton had a stable career in construction.
Well, I was a concrete finisher by trade. I made over $200 a day. I went almost a month and a half without work. I had to settle for almost $5 pay cut and travel all the way down here in order to have any work.
Today, he's facing daily food insecurity and the prospect of homelessness.
And I originally lived here, so I knew some people from here, so I called a few people I knew, and they said they'd have some construction work, flooring, siding, stuff like that. Well, the car broke down on the side of the road, and then it got orange tagged, so then they impounded it. Well, the day that it got impounded, we were on the side of the road trying to work on it to get it fixed. So I had my cell phone, my wallet, and everything in the vehicle. While we were running to get parts, we come back and it's towed to the impound.
Many people on a daily basis in our region are facing challenges associated with poverty, whether they be transportation challenges, education challenges, income and work challenges, healthcare challenges. To put it in some context, if you took Great American Ballpark and you invited everyone living in poverty to Great American Ballpark, you could fill the ballpark 6 times. So you're talking about a very large amount of people.
Despite being sidelined by COVID earlier this spring, Carrie and the Dearborn Clearinghouse have remained true to their mission, providing food and other essential services to community members that need it the most.
When COVID hit, One of my store manager got the COVID-19, and she was off for probably, I'd say, a week and a half, and then I started feeling bad, and I got sick with COVID-19. And my biggest worry at that time was who was going to feed the community.
You want me to put one of these boxes together? You guys can put the bread in the box?
We had numbers, maybe anywhere from 20 to 30 families a day coming in. Now it's gone from that to at certain times of the month, we're even having 60 families a day at the brick and mortar sites alone.
Access to safe, affordable childcare can be difficult for families in our region. Today, remote learning, school closures, and social isolation has disrupted childhood for families rich and poor. With that disruption comes risk for the mental health of everyone, young and old.
Childcare has always been a fragile ecosystem, so the way that we're financially reimbursed has always been really challenging. So you layer on the pandemic, and just one example is Learning Grove's losing $8,000 per classroom per month, and that's due to the smaller group sizes and the extra protocols that we have to follow. So certainly health and safety has been the top priority.
Feeding teenage boys who, eat pretty much all day in the hours that they're not sleeping. I feel that we've come closer as a family and that we've been helping each other a lot more. My kids have actually started collaborating.
So you know what I've been surprised with is the resiliency of our families. And in particular, you're gonna hear a story about a grandmother named Teresa. Oh my gosh, what Teresa has been through even prior to the pandemic, you wouldn't even believe her story and her resiliency of raising her 3 grandchildren because of a very tragic event that happened.
My son passed away and his wife passed away at the same time. And so I have 3 of his younger children. It's been real hard, and the kids want to go and play with other kids, and they're not in school able to do that, the 2 older ones, so they're having a hard time with that. They want to go to their friend's house, but you're like, oh, I don't know, where's this person been? You have to think about all that.
And we've been really concerned before we were open. Like, what does it mean for children that are at home when their parents are trying to juggle working at the same time of actually educating their young children? So we're actually feeling like it's better for children to be back in just with smaller group sizes. They miss their friends. At their age, they don't have a sense of beginning, middle, and end. So we can do a lot of preparation with them, but their social emotional development must be having an impact. So we want them back in class, even if we're trying to social distance as much as we can.
Because of that disruption, because of so much uncertainty, what our mind, brain, and behavior team, our mental health specialists have said, both for children and parents, is 3 simple things. One is try to get into a routine. Routine really helps that structure, a little bit more of a sense of control. 2, the issue of self-care. And so that's good nutrition. That is sleep. That is exercise. That is some relaxation. All of those things really help on the mental health front. And then thirdly, as much as we can in these times, think about things that are pleasurable for you. And again, whether that's a walk in the park, whether that's reading, whether it's listening to music, or online chatting with a friend, but something that's pleasurable. And if you can do those things every day, pretty regularly, it will very much help with some of the mental health challenges that children and families are facing.
I have a backup plan if something does happen to me. I have one of my older granddaughters living with me, and that she knows she's going to be taken over if anything happens to me with the kids, because we want to keep them all 3 together. They've been together their whole lives. Let's not mess that up. But
Mom, I sit on the chair.
You want to sit on the chair with me?
I want to sit on the chair by myself.
By yourself, okay.
Childhood poverty is a persistent challenge across the United States and in the greater Cincinnati region. Far too many children live below 100% of the federal poverty line. About 78,000 children from our region go to bed each night in poverty and wake up the next morning to daunting challenges associated with things like food, health, and education. About a quarter of our region's children living in poverty live within the city limits of Cincinnati. We've been in the top 10 of large metro areas in terms of that child poverty level throughout the decade. And so that's brought a lot of renewed emphasis and focus on child poverty in the city itself. For perspective, if you take an average school bus that holds about 70 kids, it would take a staggering number, more than 1,100 school buses, to transport all the region's children living in poverty. And while there are many efforts ongoing, this crisis is one that is especially hard on children, not only from an economic perspective, but also from an education perspective.
But what does it even mean to be considered poor? Federal measures of poverty and the policies designed to combat the problem don't often account for factors like regional costs of living. By supporting efforts that help families get to a level of self-sufficiency, or 200% of the federal poverty level, we can avoid the unintended consequences of a Band-Aid fix.
All right, we're coming on the bump. Different kind of sodas, I guess.
Poverty as a whole is a giant system that, as a nonprofit and even as a coalition of nonprofits, we're not going to be able to solve. That said, we can invest in the people who live in Lower Price Hill directly with money to be able to challenge some of the systems as they exist on a small level. And in working with United Way, we did a bit of work in creating small changes and trying it out for a little while and then tweaking it and then trying that out for a little while. And so we did a lot of work with United Way and the partner agencies in exercising that, and that is how Community Matters functions.
Many of the people that are living in poverty, that are the focus of United Way programs and supports, are now facing food crises, they're facing housing crises, and that's on top of the unemployment that everybody is talking about and thinking about. Sometimes we forget about all the downstream effects that occur when you're not able to go to work, pay your bills, and then what happens for you and your family as a result.
So much always tries to boil down to money, and of course money is our life, you know, that's who we are and what we are, especially in this society.
When the shutdown was going on in April, and there was nothing for people to do, there were a lot of bored kids. There was a lot of people who had counted on different agencies that were open to go spend their time and get their socialization through those interactions. Not necessarily going to an agency to get assistance or anything in particular, but just going to sit and talk to another human outside your household. And so at the beginning, it was really difficult for folks and for everyone to figure out what that feels like and adjust to that, just like in every community.
People living in poverty have to be part of the solution. And today, the United Way and its partner organizations are embracing that approach. At the heart of the philanthropic challenge is the fact that there are no quick fixes to our biggest social problems. But there are smarter ways we can come together to help drive long-term change.
Jenna is cool. Jenna is with Community Matters. I initially learned of Community Matters basically through my grandsons, because when we were living down the street, we were kind of isolated from everything that goes on in the neighborhood. I didn't know that it existed.
Community Matters works with resident leaders like Cynthia as she explores and deepens her love of art, and she's been an incredible leader in the Artist Collective.
Cross country.
Yeah, refreshed, rejuvenated.
I started making jewelry when I was in high school, and we won't discuss how long ago that was, but I've been making jewelry like all my life. It's been almost like therapeutic for me.
She also has been part of our housing board that has guided our path to providing affordable housing in the neighborhood.
I think within our family, the creativity gives that resilience.
The most important thing to realize is that folks who live below the poverty line have a lot to offer and to contribute, and a lot of great ideas and passions and strengths.
this is how they grow. We've been through some tough times as a family. One of the reasons that we moved here, we had ended up, after separating from my ex-husband, we ended up in a really bad neighborhood that was trying to recruit my son into a gang. And we like literally packed up overnight, and my brother moved us down here because he lived here with my dad, and we like literally packed overnight and came here to get away from that.
Many of America's military veterans have faced employment challenges throughout the pandemic. This may be on top of the underlying traumas and adversity they often face. Long-term employment is one of the best ways to help people move from poverty to self-sufficiency. With help from United Way partner Easter Seals, Army veteran Jay moved from homelessness to rediscovering the dignity of work. Today, he's part of a team working to get COVID-19 test kits into the hands of frontline workers.
And God even says, man, don't work, don't eat. And I believe the same way. You know, you've got to get off your laurels and get out there, be a part of the world.
We've seen a spike in hiring where everybody else was wanting to go home. Veterans were stepping up to the plate trying to take every job they can.
People tend to think that everything just comes along and it's theirs to take when they don't necessarily have to work for it.
I met Jay 2018, December the 14th to be exact, and he was down at the Joseph House. And he was one of the few guys that sat in on the seminar we were doing talking about employment and what we have to offer. He filled out the initial intake paperwork. He started communicating with a guy, one of our other job developers, Mitch, and then Mitch transitioned and I took over the case, and we've just met and talked week after week after week to develop everything he is today.
I was so much out of the world when I was homeless. I mean, I was just me, you know, but I never looked homeless.
And we completed the backpack and the assessment, and that assessment was a light bulb coming on for Jay, because everything up until that point was negative. And now you have a piece of paper that said, I am worthy of this. I can accomplish this. And that was the same thing that happened with me when Nita did my assessment. It's like the light bulb comes on. He started building self-esteem and the capacity.
What people have to realize is you don't stand around waiting for a hand out, you wait for a hand up. And that's what Easter Seals did for me. It gave me a hand up and said, come with us. And for the first 3 months, I stayed at Joseph. I saved my money. They started charging me rent, but I didn't care.
And then finally we ran into some other barriers with I-9s and IDs and all the things that homeless individuals may face. And we conquered all that, and he kept chopping wood, got this job, and he refuses to leave now.
It's what I've been taught all my life, and I still believe today. God ain't gonna give me no more than I can handle. It might be tough, but it's gonna make me stronger in the long run.
Being at United Way, the walk from the Free Store Food Bank to United Way, I can do that myself in my current condition. But not being able to walk there or walk in there and find out the doors are shut, that's damaging. You know, Shelter House, Joseph House, City Gospel Mission, those guys can make it here. All the resources are down here.
For me, I believe it's still taking one step forward at a time. I can take a half step back and say, well, yeah, maybe I didn't do that right, but I got to keep stepping forward. Every day is a new day and a new challenge.
I just think it's, you know, it's important that doors stay open. It's important that veterans have a place they can go to. Anybody at risk has a place they can go to.
My livelihood now is, it's not too strenuous. I'm not rich. I know what it's like to be it. I'd rather be just like I am right now. I mean, I'm making it.
And so I think that if we continue to ramp up the continuum of care and the services needed for veterans, we'll have more veterans employed, which will also cut that deficit of tax dollars, which I'm big on that. I mean, because again, everything else with going on, I'm already at a heightened state. I have this trauma, I have this, and now I'm being evicted. I don't have a job, I don't have no food resources, I don't have anything. And I'm scared I'm gonna get sick and die if I go outside because I can't afford a mask.
Food, shelter, and care for the young and old are essential for a healthy and flourishing community. And among the most vulnerable, those needs are even greater because of the pandemic's impact on our economic and social systems.
Working Working with people in the community is vital to creating systemic change that is meaningful and long-lasting. We found that if we work to create a program or do something in the neighborhood that's not community-driven, it fizzles out really quickly. And it also isn't necessarily connected to what people are actually interested in.
Recognizing who you are, being true to who that is a good place to start, and really like standing up for it.
Getting out of poverty or overcoming poverty or whatever, becoming more stable, doesn't mean that you all of a sudden have the other facets of life that wealthier people have.
At the time, I really thought it was a punishing, brutal world because people didn't understand that I was from somewhere else. And I'm trying to get into it, to being accepted. And at the time, I really cursed it because I thought, I'm never going to have a home.
We have to remind ourselves, or I always say to myself, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's had different challenges, and some people have gotten luckier along the way than other people. But I firmly have always believed, from my experience, most people want desperately to do this themselves, and they want to support their families, they want to provide for their families, and they just need some help.
Treat me with empathy. You know, I don't want you to give me anything, but give me an opportunity. Understand my circumstance, that I'm homeless, not helpless. And just open the door. If you give me a little bit, I'm gonna show you that I can do the job, but we just need people to open the door.
We all have things that we enjoy doing. We all have things and ideas that we want to see put into action. And by investing in those ideas, instead of waiting for someone to be financially stable to do that, is when you do that, you lose so much. You miss out on a lot of opportunities.
It's a very difficult, complex issue. It requires a multi-pronged approach always. I always say we're all interdependent dependent upon each other to help solve these issues, and programming doesn't help. Programming solves an immediate need, but really you have to think about it from a systemic need, and how do the systems change to really meet those needs.
Community Matters very fully believes that the way forward is together. So being united as a community and working together is the way to do community work and community building. And that's hard and messy, and I think a lot of times we think about being united as a really touchy-feely, great thing where we're all like holding candles together and singing. But it's really hard because a community is a group of different people with different perspectives.
I'm asking every individual, whether you are 13 or whether you are 80, if there's something that you can do, given where you sit today, please do it, because that united hand is critical to ensuring that our community bounce back, and we bounce back with a sense of equity so that we are helping to bring people on board who may not have the resources or support that you may have.
That kind of stuff makes you feel good internally because now they're giving back. Now they're reaching down to pull somebody else up. I have places where I place veterans, and a veteran that was placed before takes them up under their wing and show them the ropes and buy them lunch.
If you get a no, then let's figure out a way to get a yes, and so we just keep going.
COVID-19 has shaken our community to the core, but together we can make a difference. United is the way to help. Give, volunteer, advocate. Learn more at uwgc.org.